So tonight we're talking about taking responsibility and right action on our journey with MS. And when I started uh, this group, transforming MS naturally, the goal was long-term well-being, teaching people how to live beyond the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, wherever they are in their journey. And what I wasn't ready for was the throng of sort of desperate, what do I take for MS? What do I take for MS? What do I take for MS? That I got. And the thing that catches me there, and I hope it caught you too, is what do I take for MS? So really, we're just taking that medical model and transposing it on natural medicine and looking for a fix. And um, that's not what Transform MS naturally is all about. I want to teach you how to live, right? So I'm interested in you now, and I'm interested you in how you're doing in 1 year and in 5 years and in 10 years, and in fact for the rest of your life. So in the program I run in MS Naturally, one of the best compliments I got was, we've been hanging out twice a week for 10 weeks and have learned so much about MS without even really talking about MS. And that's precisely because I teach people how to live beyond the diagnosis. And that involves balancing health. That involves bringing more health in. Because the more health you bring in, right, the more you can push disease away. So it becomes a natural concept instead of finding that one thing that's going to hammer and fix everything. So the diet, the lifestyle, the mindset, the processes, the body system, they're all important. And I teach about all of those too in the context of taking right action. I want you to remember that the diagnosis is just a piece of information. Okay? It's it has that piece of information has a different meaning, a different connotation, it's a different experience for everybody. Sure, the diagnosis is the same, and sure, some of the symptoms will be the same, but the experience of that diagnosis and the experience of those symptoms is different for everybody within the context of you and your life. And so in helping people live beyond the diagnosis, the things that are important to take action on, to take responsibility for, are really stepping up and living, right? Um, because this is all about you. It's what's right for you, not what's right for MS. Do you find yourself looking for things for MS? Or do you find yourself checking in with yourself to see what's going on for you? What do you really need? You know what I find? I used to ask people in my practice all the time. I still do sometimes, but it used to be a regular question of, why do you think you have MS? So there's something for you to ponder tonight. And you know what? People um, always have an answer for that. They've always have an answer for that. And I love that because they're tuned in, right? And that's where taking radical responsibility for your health comes in, right? Not in building that arsenal of information that may or may not be useful to you, because is it relevant to you? Is it what you need? It doesn't have any context if we're just gathering information, does it? But we all do it, right? And that sort of pushed us to the point in our culture where information just doesn't really have it doesn't make a difference anymore. It doesn't seem to make a difference how much information that you're gathering or collecting. It's about what you do with that information and where you grow, where you step off, what action you take with that information. I remember when I was a brand new naturopathic doctor, I was doing what many of you are probably doing. I was going to every seminar, and I was, excuse me, I was going to conferences like crazy. And can any of you relate to that? Going to webinars, seminars, symposiums, you know? Um, and my mentor at the time said to me, stop. You know, you know more than enough to be an excellent doctor. He said, no more conferences, no more seminars, no more webinars for 1 year. And it was actually the best advice I ever got because it allowed me to settle in to the information that I'd already gathered. Because you got to know, probably some of you can relate to this, and let me know if you can. Every time you go to a seminar or a webinar or a master class or something, you're taking notes, you're taking notes. And if you're like me, I came home and I put those notes on the pile with all the other notes and watched that pile grow. That year off from information gathering allowed me to take the responsibility to actually go through that stuff, but also to settle into what I already knew and discover what it was that I needed. Right now, there's so much science out there that proves with an evidence base that MS can be a very manageable condition, that we don't need to get caught up in the information gathering anymore, because that just fuels FOMO, right? That fear of missing out, and anxiety. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of desperation and a lot of anxiety. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, whether you're newly diagnosed or whether you're coming at this again. Because if you were diagnosed 20 years ago, baby, things have changed, haven't they? Um, I see some people in the chat that I know have figured out that things have changed, right? And um, to really embrace that, we need to let go of the information gathering and getting stuck in that desperation, that crazy, frantic panic, to take a breath, to feel what it is we need and where we need to go. And um, it can be difficult with a world that is so driven by marketing hoopla, right? So figuring out what's relevant and how to take right action and responsibility, um, when we're being told at every turn by $1 trillion industry that there's things that we absolutely can't miss, and we absolutely um, can't live without. And really what we need to do is step back and not get caught up in the next celebrity endorsement or you know hoopla, marketing hoopla, and stay true to building that foundation that's going to help us for the rest of our lives. So when you're building a foundation, when you know you're working on something, when you're taking responsibility to put together relevant information that's going to help you over the long term, it's easier to stop the information crazy. And it does. If you're still in that, oh my God, I need more, uh, believe me, it does get easier. And to get to the point, think about the advice my mentor gave me. Stop, nothing for a year. Dig into what you've already got, what you already know, right? And when you do go to symposiums and when you do go to webinars, check in with yourself. Like, are you like white knuckled on your pen, scribbling as many notes as you possibly can? Or are you sitting there in confidence, being able to hear what's being said and taking away a couple of golden nuggets with you? Um, because you're better off to come away with a couple of golden nuggets that you can actually put into action right away than another stack of information, right? 30 pages of notes. And I know I've done it. Have you? Where you just, I still do it. I was working with somebody this morning, and I literally in an hour took 8 double-sided pages of information. Well, guess what? Now I have to go sift through that and weed it down. So I'm not saying I'm immune to it either, but we need to take that information and put it into action. Um, so sorry, a better way to come away from a symposium is with those nuggets, because that can be empowering, where that stack of paper can be very disempowering. I remember once I gave a workshop for the MS Society, and this woman came up to me and she said, I took 30 pages of notes, and she was so excited. And I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I was sort of being saucy with her, and she said, why is that? I said, well, now you have to go back and figure out all the good stuff. And she said, it's all good stuff. Well, if you've got 30 pages of good stuff, you need to learn how to take better notes. Do you get caught up in that? Do you get caught up in your note taking like I do and like so many other people do? Really listening allows you to be present, right? And when you're present, you can feel what's landing for you, what's resonating with you. And when we tune into our bodies and listen to what's resonating to us, we don't have to start everything all at once and then find that things don't work for us, because I've heard that too. I remember I had a young lady uh, who I'd been working with for a bit come in and say to me one time, yeah, I tried meditation and it didn't work for me. Well, I had to bite my lip, right? Because we know meditation is so helpful in MS. There's studies about meditation and pain, meditation and energy, and sleep, and overall quality of life. So I had to bite my lip, because maybe she she needed a different approach. Maybe, she was just overwhelmed with information. That was just one more thing to do, right? Maybe there were some steps she needed to take before she could comfortably get there, some lifestyle steps. Maybe she needed to be connecting to herself more. So whenever you think something's not working for you, take a step back and just lean into it, and feel what's going on with that for you. Taking radical responsibility for your health takes the FOMO out of it, right? You can check that fear at the door. And isn't that fear a dominant thing, especially when we feel squirrely little things going on in our body, right? So taking that responsibility and having confidence. There's no right answer. You're not going to do anything wrong. You can only do right things. If you're taking action, everything you do is right. It's sitting back and continuing to, build that pile of paper that's going to block you from taking right action, right? Um, Excellent. Okay. So, and that sort of trickles over, like that whole how you approach things trickles over in how you show up for life. And how you show up for life is how life will show up for you. I love that line. I just had to use it. It's not mine. I borrowed it. But so much of taking responsibility is how you choose to see life. And what I mean by this is whether you show up as a victim. It's like, oh my God, I have MS. My life is over. I just want my old life back. Well, guess what? Most of the time, the old life back thing doesn't work. So we need to learn how to live beyond the diagnosis, whatever that means. And it'll mean, like I said, something new for everybody. So no one said it would be easy. It might be downright hard, but there are some things, and hopefully if you've been listening to me for a while, you're starting to pick these things up. There are things that make the journey easier. They empower you to be able to take responsibility, to be able to take action. They quell the FOMO, they quell the anxiety. And I could ask a few people. Lisa, you probably know. Aaron, you probably know. Hi, Jeff from Niagara Falls. Welcome. What's the first thing I always say? What's the first thing we do in any situation ever, ever, ever? Just breathe. Just breathe grounds you. Just breathe takes the urgency out of the situation. Just breathe takes you out of the stress response and into the relaxation response. And that's what we need to do whenever. That's a really powerful way in any situation to take responsibility, to own that situation. Another simple thing, and these are really simple things, but the simple things are the things we overlook, aren't they? You know, like how many times do I have to stop and say, okay, Teri, just breathe? Actually, I have a gigantic iMac here with a gigantic screensaver that comes up that says, just breathe. The second thing that will help ground us and be able to take responsibility and action is just to smile. Believe it or not, just turning the corners of your mouth up changes your biochemistry. All kinds of science about that. Laughing yoga is a thing because it works. So, you know, when you're frustrated, push yourself back from your desk, take a deep breath, and smile, right? You're doing amazing things for your body, for your psyche, for your sense of empowerment, your confidence. All of those things shift and change. The next one requires a little bit more work, and that's create routines. You know, we often want change so desperately, but it really takes work, right? Because we've got neural pathways that are telling us to do the same things today that we did yesterday. Well, if we want to do something differently, we have to create new neural pathways. And we create new neural pathways by doing things differently, whether we want to or not. Whether that's getting up at the same time every day, whether that's making a time to work out or meditate at the same time every day, whether that's stopping to prepare a meal at the same time every day. Creating those new routines drives the new neural pathways, drives the change in the brain and in your lifestyle. You know, that's going to have positive impact on you. And I think you've heard me say, if you know me, whether you want to or not, right? That's my big lesson from a neuroscientist working in neuroplasticity. He said, yeah, you got to do this whether you want to or not to make these wonderful changes. Another wonderful thing in taking responsibility is to show up. These are getting harder as we go down the list, don't you find? So showing up every day doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how hard. It doesn't matter how depressed. It doesn't matter how much pain you are. Showing up every day for you, because that's what drives those new neural pathways. And saying I tried that once and it didn't work for me is defeatist talk. It's not empowered talk. So really, this becomes about the dialogue we have in ourselves, no matter what the circumstances are around us. And we all have those days. We all have those days where the hardest thing to do is to show up because you'd rather just crawl back in bed. But by creating those new pathways, those days get fewer and life gets easier and easier and easier to live beyond the diagnosis. I think really one of the secrets is to remember that it is not one thing. It's not even two things. It's absolutely everything you do to that allows that change to happen, and it allows you to not get stuck. You're not looking for that fix. You're not looking for that single thing. You understand and you have a concept of what it's going to take to build that foundation. You can feel for you what's important, and if you don't, then you know you can direct yourself to someone who can give you help, who can help you with that. Because it's as much about building your team, because, spoiler alert, you won't be able to do this by yourself, right? We're in that world of information. There's still a reason why people go to medical school or naturopathic medical school or chiropractic medical school, because they're able to take you to places that you might not necessarily get on your own. People everywhere, and I mean this sincerely, are making positive change in their lives with MS, and we see it all the time. And literally, I know dozens of people who have completely done 180s on their health, who have literally got out of wheelchairs and who have literally, put their walking aids aside. And, I'm not a drama queen about that, because I understand the reality of the work that's involved too. But it's all about taking the responsibility and making the commitment to take action, right? So, taking action, taking responsibility, all comes down to bringing intention to your life and to the choices that you make. So, once again, leaning into it, getting out of that frantic information gathering mode. It means you're not bouncing around like a ping pong ball after the next shiny object, right? Or the next trend. I mean, if I had $1 for every trend I've seen over the last 20 years in practice, I'd be buying myself a new car by now, I'm sure. But, I want you to see the value in listening and not scrambling, right? I want you to see the value in checking in with yourself. How does something land for you? I want you to see the value in building your team, and learning how to speak to them. So feeling confident about how you go to your neurologist. This is something that we talk about in Transform MS. It's what do you want? How do you approach your doctor? What is it you want? What's your end result? What are your expectations going in there? All of this is empowering, and all of this is taking right action. And that is really what transforming MS naturally is all about. So I'm going to check in over here with you. Please add any questions you have for me, because I've got my tea and I've got my vest and I'm snuggled in for the night. Let us know. Okay, that's you, Mike. There's Lisa Smith. Hi, Lisa. You girl, you show up. Can I ask you, I take vitamin B12 through NP. There's an ingredient on the bottle that says lactose monohydrate. Worried it's dairy and NP. I don't understand. If that's an ingredient in it, I would Google it or ask the NP. I assume that's nurse practitioner. I don't know. Additives are additives. I don't know what lactose monohydrate is. And Jeff, hello. Hi, Aaron. And there's Debbie again. Debbie, you're showing up too, eh, girl? So nobody's got any questions for me about taking responsibility. Nobody wants to beat me up on this one. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's about empowering yourself to step forward and not be stuck. And that stuckness is what's really stopping a lot of people from embracing their potential and staying stuck in that fear and anxiety of the diagnosis. Anyway, I wish you a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Take good care.